Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to Believe in White Sox. I'm Greg Moraz, your host. Make sure you hit like and subscribe on our YouTube page. Make sure you also subscribe on our podcast platforms, which include Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Overcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, if that is still a thing. It's going to be a short one today. Look, the White Sox are not worth talking about in their current state, but I do have to say that last night's win over the New York Yankees after a two-game, and it was weird, the White Sox didn't play on Sunday. I read it was like the first time in 91 years that the White Sox did not have a regularly scheduled game on a Sunday during baseball season. I remember a couple of years ago, since MLB has put in this rivalry week duo series to where it's just a pair of two-game series against your crosstown rivals, the Yankees, the Mets, the A's, the Giants. Cubs and White Sox are now only playing four games instead of the regular six games that they used to in interleague play. So the White Sox didn't play on Sunday. They lose 7-6 to the Cubs and 3-1 to the Cubs in the Friday Saturday two-game set. They were down 7-0 to the Cubs on Friday, got 6 runs to get within a run, had a chance to win the game, but were unable to do so in what was Grady Sizemore's first game as White Sox manager. However, the game last night against the New York Yankees, at least in the frame of what this season has been for the Chicago White Sox, is maybe one of the most unexpected games that you'll have all year. A 12-2 win for the White Sox, in which they knocked out 18 hits. They scored multiple runs in 3 of 8 innings in which they were at the plate. They scored 2 in the first, 2 in the fourth, and 6 in the 7th inning. This also is a team that allowed only 2 runs while issuing 7 walks from their starter, 11 total walks. I didn't phrase that as well as I should have, but Kai Busch is really struggling with his command since he came up to the big leagues. 4 2/3 innings in his second career start, 6 hits, 2 runs, 7 walks, and 2 strikeouts. The White Sox, as a pitching staff, walked 11 across 5 different pitchers, but they found a way to get the ball out of the ballpark. Corey Lee hit his 10th homer, which was a solo shot in the 4th inning, and Brooks Baldwin hit his second career homer, which was a 3-run shot. Andrew Vaughn had himself a very nice day, went 4 for 5 with 2 runs scored. Gavin Sheets had 4 RBI. He went 4 for 5 with a run scored. Corey Lee, 2 for 4 with 2 runs scored and an RBI on that homer. Dominic Fletcher had 3 hits. He went 3 for 5 with 2 runs scored and an RBI. So also Andrew Benintendi, for whatever the heck that's worth, he went 2 for 5 with 2 runs scored and an RBI. But the New York Yankees came into the game at 70-49. They're now 70-50. The White Sox came into the game at 28-91. They're now 29-91. And this note from OptaStats: the White Sox win over the Yankees yesterday. All right, I got to figure out a way to read these tweets a little bit better. I'm a little bit better. I'll just admit that having to do this podcast on video as well as transcribing the audio, or not transcribing the audio. See, I can't even describe what I'm trying to describe properly. I am a lot more used to doing an audio only medium to where my face isn't looking at a lot of different places over the camera. So what I'm going to say is this tweet from OptaStats, and if you want to go at them at OptaStats on Twitter X, which was quite a place last night during the Elon Musk and Donald Trump, whatever the heck that was. So the tweet says the White Sox beat the Yankees 12-2 yesterday despite having 42 fewer wins entering the game. The last MLB team to enter a game with at least 40 fewer wins than their opponent and win by 10 or more runs was the Blue Jays in 1977, who at 46-92 beat the Yankees 19-3, and the Yankees at the time were 87-54. That was September 10th, 1977. So the White Sox certainly decided that they were going to pick one heck of a time to get Grady Sizemore his first win as a manager, and he looked really happy after the game. I mean, I don't think that Grady Sizemore is going to be this team's manager next year. I think he's finishing out this year and maybe seeing if he has a spot on the coaching staff next year. Maybe somebody else will take him onto the coaching staff next year. But it certainly seems like, and even though they didn't beat the Cubs over the weekend, it certainly seems like this team is playing with a renewed energy and a renewed vigor. And this is what I've been arguing for all along. I don't think this team is as bad as they have played. I think that this team underperformed under Pedro Grifol, and I think that all of the reports that came out of a fractured clubhouse, even though it's only a 3 game sample size, based on the way that they have played, I think that the reports of the fractured clubhouse are 1,000% true. And I think that you can point to the way that the team is playing for somebody that, quite frankly, is a little bit more relatable. And Pedro Grifol's handling of his team to the media left a lot to be desired. He was calling them effing flat and then saying he's doubling down. You don't necessarily double down on a phrase. You don't say that because there's no extra action that you can take. So I think that the managerial change was unfortunately a little bit too late, but at the same time, at least it finally happened, and we weren't watching this team continue to fall deeper into the doldrums if that was humanly possible. I think the positives that come out of a game like yesterday is you look at somebody like Brooks Baldwin hitting the ball out of the yard the way that he did, average up to 213. Dominic Fletcher, a 3-hit game. I think that's somebody that is going to end up being a starting outfielder for the White Sox next year. They're not going to have the luxury to shuttle him back and forth just because of the fact that they don't have nearly enough guys. I thought it was interesting that in a game that the White Sox scored 12 runs, that Luis Robert was not in the lineup. So I think that Luis Robert, just based upon his body language, what I saw in Oakland last week, I don't think that this is somebody that Grady Sizemore is too fond of. I remember Grady Sizemore as a gritty player, somebody that hit leadoff a lot, gave maximum effort. So there may be some fundamental differences between Sizemore and Robert in terms of the amount of effort that is required. And I'm not saying that Luis Robert's a dog, but I'm saying that there are times when you look at Luis Robert running to first base or running to a ball in the outfield that he does not look like he is giving the maximum effort possible. And I think that when you talk about what the Sox are trying to do in what remains of this season, you need guys that are going to prove that. And look, the way that the MLB draft system is set up now, and we've talked about this before, tanking does you no good. It's not going to improve your draft position. The White Sox are not going to be drafting the top 5 next year. So, what happens with this team this year means nothing in terms of draft position going forward. But what it needs to show over the course of the final 6 weeks of the season is that there are players that want to be here and can be productive teammates moving forward into next year, even if the White Sox are not going to be competitive next year. I think we remember the first part of the initial rebuild back in 2017, 2018. Who were the guys that are going to be here when this team gets good? And now, granted, Jose Abreu was one of the guys that was there before the rebuild started and was there when everything hit its climax and then disappeared right before everything hit the tank at the start of last year. So he's accepted from the rule. But I think Tim Anderson is one of those guys that was here for the rebuild and was at the bottom, rose to the top. Same thing with Lucas Giolito. Same thing with Yohan Moncada. To a lesser extent, Eloy Jimenez, because Eloy didn't debut until 2019, whereas those other guys debuted a lot earlier. So maybe we get to see a full 2 months of Dominic Fletcher and assess whether or not he's going to be part of the team moving forward. maybe we're able to see if Corey Julks is a keeper or if Gavin Sheets has a role beyond being a platoon first baseman or corner outfielder. There's a lot of things that you can evaluate with this White Sox team and see if there are guys that might be a part of them moving forward. Kai Bush, I think, has a potential to be a future part of this rotation, but so far the command issues through two starts leave a lot to be desired. So that to me, I think, is a game that you just have to smile. And in what has been maybe the roughest season of any Chicago White Sox fan's lifetime, in fact, based on what the record's probably going to end up being, it will be the roughest season in the history of the franchise. A moment like that, where you beat a team that constantly beats up on you, that is a big market behemoth like yourself, but actually plays and acts like it, as opposed to you, who plays and acts more like a small market team. I think it just goes to show that sometimes the little guy does catch a break. And last night, in some inexplicable way, the little guy caught a break. So we really don't have a whole lot else to discuss today because there's really just not a whole lot to talk about at this point. I want to open it up to you, the fans, for any recommendations on topics, any recommendations on guests, because at this point in the show, we will start to, as we get a little bit more in depth into the end of their minor league seasons, give an evaluation of the 2024 draft class. We will hopefully at some point have some September call ups to talk about in terms of guys that have yet to make their big league debut with the White Sox, and will hopefully do so at some point before this year is done. I think a lot of people are looking at Brian Ramos and Colson Montgomery as the two guys that they're most excited to talk about. And then we'll start to explore the managerial selection process a little bit more. I think that we pretty much flushed out that Skip Schumacher was going to be that guy, but right now there's just not a ton of news about the White Sox. And in one form or another, I think that that's okay. I think that we've gone down the negativity rabbit hole to the furthest extent that we can. I want to look for positive signs. And I feel like yesterday's game was about as positive of a sign as you possibly could have in regards to the White Sox. So, looking at the schedule, though, the White Sox will be playing the second game of their 4-game series against the Yankees tonight. It'll be Jonathan Cannon against Nestor Cortez. Then on Wednesday, Yankees have yet to announce their starter, but the White Sox will go with Davis Martin. Then, sorry, it's a 3-game series. Then an off day on Thursday, off to Houston, where the White Sox will have a 3-game set against the Astros, and then right back to the Bay Area where they just came from after playing the Oakland Athletics. They will open up a 3-game set a week from yesterday against the San Francisco Giants, and that ought to be interesting because the Giants are in a do or die situation in terms of making the playoffs. The Giants are going on the road briefly. They're going to go over to Oakland for a 2-game set against the Athletics over the weekend, but the Giants will have, I believe, Thursday off, and then they will have, well, you know what? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I think the Giants are off Sunday, and then they will be back facing the White Sox on Monday. So that's it. That's all for Believe in White Sox. Short and sweet today. Thanks for listening and watching, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.